Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Mike Reviews Military Stuff. I am your host, Mike B, and today I'm going to be giving my opinion and reviewing the Russian Mosin-Nagant M91 infantry rifle, or originally called the three-line rifle, because a line was the equivalent of a tenth of an inch or something like that, and that's why it was originally called the three-line rifle. But yeah, this is the M1891 rifle. So, where do we begin? This was used for a long time by a lot of different countries. I will be doing a separate review on the 9130. These are not the same rifles. They're very similar, obviously, but one, in my opinion, is a little bit better than the other and stands out a little bit more. So, yeah, this was used originally by Russia, and later on, just about every country in the world besides, well, even the United States used these at one point. Every country you could possibly think of has used one of these, a variation of this. That, yeah, I mean, they're everywhere. This was the AK of the day. Everybody thinks the Mauser was the AK of the day, and it definitely was, but this ended up being about just as prevalent as Mauser variants because of the amount that were manufactured, where they ended up, and all that stuff. So, basically, I think the list would be shorter if I said who hasn't used these. I don't think the United Kingdom has ever used these. I don't think... I can't even think of any places where these haven't popped up. Mexico, I don't think, has used these. So, but, yeah. Anyway, that's just kind of the brief history. I'll do another video on the actual history of this rifle and the design. It's a great piece. I love the M91 rifle. It took me years to actually get one that was within my kind of price range, and this is a cool one. It's a Balkans import, it looks like. It's a 1916 Peter the Great. Just an excellent rifle. It's really interesting. The sights on here are great too, and they're actually in arshins, which is like 26 inches per arshin. So it's a little bit different than meters that they use on the 9130. But anyway, I gotta quit giving the history on this. We're gonna start ranking this thing. So the first ranking we go by is the aesthetic factor, and to me, this is an ugly yet elegant looking rifle. It's very late 1800s-esque. So originally designed in around 1890 and 1891, and then production began in 1892 officially. There are a few 1891 dated examples floating around, and my God, are those rare and expensive. But we'll just say 1892 is when that officially started becoming production, but it's known as the 1891. Compared to other rifles at that time, it doesn't look anything out of the ordinary and bad. I think some Mausers are more blah and boring than this. It's unique. But it's pretty ugly still. I don't think that the Mosin-Nagant has got appeal. Like, the stock is whatever. But given that I like the Victorian era rifles, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 for the aesthetic thing. I like the sights. I like the hexagonal receiver. Yes, it's hexagonal. It's not octagonal, right? Or no, it's octagonal. Yeah, everybody calls it a hex receiver, and it's actually octagonal. That was the other thing. Okay, my bad. Thinking out loud inside my head there. Sorry about that. But, the sights, there's nothing special. It's got the cleaning rod and all that stuff. So, yeah, 6 out of 10 for the aesthetic thing. It's not terrible, but it's not super good. Practicality and usefulness. So this is where we get interesting. So we're going to just judge this for its military service life and then the life in civilian shooters, kind of like a lot of military rifles. There's not as many of these floating around as surplus as most of them were updated to the 9130, but these are still very prevalent in the hands of civilian shooters today. At the time, in the late 1800s up through the First World War, when these were used pretty extensively and thereafter, they worked. It's just like the 9130 that everybody talks about. It works. It's a Mosin-Nagant. It works. Practicality. The sights are actually quite easy to use. They're big and blocky, but they're nice battle sights. The bolt could be better, but here's what I've found on pre-1931 or 1930, upgrades and whatever. Basically on any Model 91, the quality is just going to be a lot better, and the bolt seems a lot smoother than it does on every 9130 that I've ever held. It's even smoother than a lot of the Finnish M39s, M2830s. I don't know if it's because they were worn because they were used so much more, or if it's just the way they were manufactured a little bit better. So the practicality and usefulness, I haven't had a lot of problems with the bolts on 91s that I've shot, or 91 Dragoon rifles. Anything pre-World War II or 1930s, basically. Now, one problem I do have with this is the loading system. This uses a 5-round charger clip that's thick like that. It's a weird design. It's okay to use, but it's also his chamber for the 7.62 by 54 rimmed cartridge. I forgot to mention that. So what you have to do is you insert the clip like that, which is pretty standard, inserting it into the bridge. And a lot of times, like this one might work. I'm not going to load it right now, but if you see it on my loading videos, you push down and then you get what's called rim lock, because the rimmed rounds, this is a problem for multiple calibers that have this rim too. The rim on the back it would be like this. On the top round will actually get caught behind the rim of the round below it. And even though there is this thing called an interrupter on there, sometimes rim lock requires you to force this thing and, play with it. So that's why for practicality and usefulness, that kind of gets a little bit downgraded. Now the score is going to go up a little bit more for the fact that after these left military service, these have been used all over the world for hunting and sport shooting. And that makes it an extremely practical. They're very, very easy to use, very easy to clean, very easy to maintain. They were made to be simple. They are simple. They're very effective that way and very practical that way. So for its overall military performance and drawbacks, and still the amount of game that these have taken, just a few years ago, everybody could afford a 9130. I mean, they were $70 to $80 for a 9130. The ammo was dirt cheap. If somebody needs food, if they need to go hunting, you spend $100 and you can get a rifle that'll kill most game in North America. I don't know about the rest of the world. And it's not a lot of money. That brings the practicality and usefulness, in my opinion. Again, these are all my opinions. This isn't set in stone, so don't get too angry. This is just what I think. I think these actually get a 9 out of 10. Now, we're not talking about the issues that it has. We're just talking about overall practicality and usefulness. Is this useful to get food for somebody who doesn't make a lot of money? Absolutely. Is it useful to get somebody into shooting sports? Absolutely. So the M91 is a great rifle. It's a little bit heavier than the 9130, but I know I keep comparing it to that, but that's the one that most people are familiar with. They don't realize that this is actually the original Gangster. It's a little bit longer and everything. A little bit different, but I'll probably make a video someday on the difference between 9130 and 91. Anyway, it gets a 9 out of 10 for practicality and usefulness. You can argue that it's a garbage rod or whatever you want to do. My opinion on that, because of the criteria I just laid out. Let's move on. Quality/durability. Now, for the M91s, whoever they were manufactured by, again, this is in my experience, I've only handled probably less than 50 from different manufacturers, different time periods, different amounts of use, different history behind them. And I can say that the quality is actually quite decent on these. I don't have a problem with that. This bolt is very smooth. The receiver just feels really good. The trigger's not terrible. Everything works on here. It's very simple, yet it's really good quality. There's no machine marks. It's just nice. And the wood, the stock, is actually a pretty decent thing. It's the old straight style, but it's pretty easy to use. So for quality, it's going to score pretty high. Durability, yeah, these things are built like tanks. A lot of things that are Russian are built to be very simple and effective, and they are. So these things, obviously this rifle is from 1916, so this is 105 years old this year. And there's ones from the 1890s, the antiques, that are in just as good a condition. So for quality and durability, the ability for these things to hold up after being used by 3 or 4 different countries in 3 or 4 different conflicts, plus them being surplused out, these are going to get for the M91, again, this is the M91, this is not the 9130, these are going to get an 8 out of 10. So for durability and quality, 8 out of 10. That's not applicable because we're not doing a hat or clothing video. Originality of the design. Now, this is really interesting. When we're talking about, again, the 1891, the originality of the design is pretty okay. It's about as much as any other original design. It had influences from previous firearms that had been made in the mid-19th century. I don't remember exactly the couple that it was designed by, but yeah, it was 2 guys that basically, well, it was more of Mosin that came up with this, or was it? No, Mosin-Nagant was about, he liked pistols a lot more. Anyway, so it was a Russian guy and a Belgian guy that came up with this design. It actually is fairly original, with the cocking knob and everything, and the trigger mechanism and the receiver and the magazine, the way it's set up with the interrupter and all that stuff. The sights, I mean, nothing special about those. The stock and the way this is, the handguard is held on. If you don't know, there's little metal things on either side. The way the stock, you have the... And it seems like it's original, but it's nothing special. It's just basically an updated version of some other rifles that existed before it, although in a smaller smokeless caliber. So for originality design, it's still going to get a 6 out of 10 because it really, like most rifles of that era, there's nothing special that stands out about it. It's a pretty basic mechanism. It's very, very easy to take apart the bolt. If you know what you're doing, you've done it enough. Trust me, it gets easier. So yeah, I mean, this gets a 6 out of 10 for originality because it's really nothing special, but that doesn't mean it's a bad rifle. Modern cost. So these are going to be for practicality of modern use. If you think you're going to fight, World War III with one of these, good luck. But I mean, for hunting and stuff like that and collecting, these are getting up there in price. The original M91s, just like the 9130s. So for modern cost, these things used to be a really good deal. You used to be able to get an M91 for $200, and that was like, oh, why would you pay $200 for a Mosin? Well, because it's technically an older model, and it's a little bit less of them floating around, and it's just a really cool design. And for hunting, for $400 to $500, which is what these are going for now in a condition like this, nicer ones are obviously going to be more. Ones that are made in the U.S. are going to be more. You can get a decent practical deer rifle that has no historical value. So I'm going to not really say I'd recommend this to get this for hunting unless you like both history, and all that stuff with hunting. And for people that are just getting into collecting, it's not terrible. It's not one of the higher end costing rifles, but it's also not as good as it used to be. And it's not, $400 to $500 for a rifle is still a lot of money. And the ammunition's, it's getting up there in price. Commercial's about as much, surplus is about as much as commercial. So that being said, for the modern cost for what you actually get in this rifle is about a 6 out of 10 as well. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just a 6 out of 10. Now, it's nothing really against the rifle. Again, the modern cost thing is more of just a current market fluctuation, societal fluctuation. So anyway, that's that. I'll put the final rankings right here and wrap the video up. If you thought this was a cool video and you like this content and the other content that I produce on my channel, and you would like to support me financially and allow me to do cool videos like this is partially crowdfunded, which is awesome. We're doing shooting videos on this and other history videos on this in time. You can become a Patreon supporter or a channel member. Or if you don't want to do that, there's also a Teespring link. We'll constantly be expanding that inventory. But Patreon and channel membership are the two best ways to help crowdfund. Now, what that does is, if you haven't seen my videos getting a little bit cooler, I think, in the past couple of years, that's because I've got more crowdfunding. We're able to do more ballistic tests on helmets and expensive helmets, too, and body armor and stuff like that, getting firearms. We're going to be doing a lot of cool things with stuff that I would not be able to afford just funding out of pocket, which I have been for years. So crowdfunding is really helping that out. And another reason that I'd like to just keep it crowdfunding and self-funding is I don't like it when I have to watch, a paid advertisement for, a product that I'm probably not going to buy in every single video because I'm, have corporate sponsors. So I'd like to just keep it crowdfunding and self-funding too, if you're into that thing, for that reason. If you can't support the channel financially, I totally get that. It's not a big deal. Just make sure you can support me in the ways that you know the drill. It's YouTube 2021. Like this video. It does matter in the algorithm. Subscribe if you have not already. That also matters in rankings and stuff. And the best way to actually, help support the channel besides financially is to share the video out. If you think somebody could learn something or they might get interested in the hobby and preserve the hobby a little bit more, and maybe start up a discussion or whatever, or you just think it's an entertaining video, sharing the video really makes a big difference. So, all that's done. It's been said. We've got the plug out of the way. But yeah, if you consider that, cool. All right. So that got us through another episode of Mike Reviews Military Stuff. Hope you liked this video. I figured you guys liked the M1 Garand review, so I'll just review all of my guns. Or most of them, because I have a lot of duplicates. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode of Mike Reviews Military Stuff.